Hi, welcome to Ladies of Another View on Beck, and I am joined today with Carmen and Jan and Dustin Gawrylow. We're gonna tell you who he is in just a minute, and I'm Patty. And stick around for the show because we have some pretty heavy hitting topics here. We're gonna have Michael Rechtenwald, a former Marxist NYU professor who used to be so woke, and now he's on the other side, and he's going to talk about the Great Reset. A lot of interesting topics there. But I want to welcome you to the show, Dustin.
Sure thing. Nice to be here.
Well, thanks for coming on. I saw a press release that you just released yesterday, way ahead of the other local news media, so good job on that. Talking about the Legacy Fund, divesting investments with Russia. So Russia's big news right now. Can you get us started? Tell us what that's about.
Sure, and we'll try to be as simple as possible on it. Basically, in the Legacy Fund, there is about $1 million worth of investment in Russia inside of different funds that we have bought. Within the entire portfolio of the state, with all the various funds that we have, there's $19 billion total invested, and about 15 million of that was exposed to Russia in one way or another. Some of those dollars are in funds that we can pick what is in them, and some of them are just in like mutual funds that you buy the mutual fund and you have to just live with whatever's inside that mutual fund. The average person, when you're investing in your 401k and you're selecting a Vanguard mutual fund, you don't know every little thing that's in it. I can guarantee that everybody who has a properly diversified portfolio has exposure to Russia.
So let me just make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So when you invest with a company, you're investing in what they're investing in?
Yes.
Okay.
In a mutual fund. And can you tell our viewers what is part of the investment funds that you're talking about other than the Legacy Fund?
Well, we're talking about the pension fund, North Dakota ND-PERS it's called. We're talking about TFFR, the Teachers Retirement Fund. We're talking about the Firemen's Pension Fund, and then the Workforce Safety Investment Fund that helps make sure that taxpayers don't have to actually pay for WSI. All these funds are designed to generate revenue to offset the need for tax revenue. That's the point of every single fund. Legacy Fund has been kind of open-ended until this last legislative session as to what the money that comes out of it would do. But all of the other funds, pension funds, are designed to invest in the market, use the profits generated from the market through dividends and interest, and offset the costs for the taxpayers when paying out pensions for former state employees.
Right.
So when the state invests this money, for the viewer's sake, who gets to make the decisions on where it's invested?
So we have a state investment board, which is chaired by the lieutenant governor, who's serving on the behalf of the governor, the treasurer, and several other appointed officials from the various funds, from the PERS Fund, from the Legacy Fund, there's one legislature who's on the board. And so that group of people acts as a board of directors. They don't actually do the investments. If you look at the people that are on there, they're not certified investment planners. They're just people who are in positions of authority and are stakeholders in the investment strategy. So that board then hires a independent consultant, in this case a company named Callan, that comes in and suggests what kind of investments that the state should put their money into. That then gets directed out to other funds, other companies that run funds that meet the strategic investment goals of the state, and that means return on investment. If the pension fund targets an 8% return, so we go out and we seek funds that will pay out 8% interest so that we can finance our pension fund and not ask the taxpayers to pay more than we already are. And so the question comes up is, how much control do we have when we buy those funds? Are we buying funds that are hedge funds that we're paying them to use their expertise to trade day to day, even hour to hour, to maximize profit? Are we buying active management funds that are managed more on a weekly or monthly basis? Or are we buying passive index funds that are just kind of controlled for everybody and are more stable, more conservatively managed, but that we don't have any control over what's in them? How much control you have in a fund determines how much you pay for the fund. If it's an index fund, it's a very tiny fee. If it is a hedge fund, it'll be 3%, but in that 3% fee, you should be greatly exceeding the return that you would otherwise get in the index fund.
So are you saying then that the board said, Callan, you get us out of anything Russia? Is that kind of what you're saying here? What happened at the meeting yesterday is exactly that. Now, getting out of Russia, now that it is illegal to trade with Russia, it is illegal to buy anything from Russia, all of these investments are worth zero right now because the interests that are on those bonds that we bought off of the private market, we didn't buy those bonds or investments directly from Russia. We bought them from somebody else who bought them from Russia. So it's like buying a used car versus a new car. Right.
And so it's illegal to take any money from Russia. So those bonds we can't get any money from Russia to pay that interest on those bonds, which makes those bonds worthless. It may be years or decades before we can sell those bonds. So they're essentially zero.
So does that mean we're just in holding? Like these are worthless. We're not taking them out. We're not doing anything. They're just like in a holding pattern. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, at this point, if we get, 1% of the money out, we'd probably be lucky. I mean, I suggested in a previous interview that maybe we should just try to donate them to some humanitarian organization that might get the money 20 years from now.
And so how many millions of dollars
Yeah, that
are we
was my
talking
question.
here?
Yes.
So the total exposure of the state is about $15 million out of $19 billion. So it's a very small amount. It's a rounding error when it comes down to it.
Isn't that funny how you can make 15 million seem like nothing?
Yeah.
So what's the difference between the exposure with Russia and our exposure with China? And, how much of our money is going over there? And shouldn't we be saying no to them as well?
The difference is huge because in the legacy of fund alone, we are exposed by over $100 million. In all of the state funds, it's going to exceed $500 million. So the $15 million Russia thing is not a big deal. That when the stock market goes down 800 points in a day, we probably lose $200 million that day, and then gain it back when the market comes back up. Sure. But the real issue is China with $500 million of exposure. We need to, and I was told 2 hours ago by a different reporter that the next State Investment Board meeting is going to be talking about China and how to get out of that. It's going to be much more difficult because China, in the last 20 years, has been one of the best places to put your money. It's had the highest return. If you invested in China, you were making 20, 30, 40% a year in returns. That's good money that we can and have used to offset the need for higher taxes.
Right.
And so we've got to have a big discussion about, do we want to be invested in high return, highly profitable countries that are bad guys?
Why don't you explain what exactly you're about?
So the Watchdog Network was created in 2012. It's been the third version of what I've done for the last 15 years. It's a 501c3 nonprofit charity that keeps an eye on government. And I go to the legislature and lobby in favor of lower taxes, less government, less regulation, because under IRS rules, if we keep our dollars dedicated to lobbying below 20% of our total budget, we are allowed to lobby. We're not allowed to endorse candidates. So we can talk about ballot measure issues. We can run campaigns on local city issues or state issues. But we don't get into the business of endorsing candidates. Now, I myself can personally be a candidate because I'm still a citizen of America and have that right, but I have to be very careful about separating those two things and making sure that I put on a different hat when I'm talking about different things.
Well, maybe now's the time to tell us that you are a candidate
Yes.
for county commissioner, right?
Yes, I'm
In Burleigh
running
County.
for Burleigh County Commission. I'm still collecting signatures, but I will be a candidate, and I've been involved in local Bismarck issues very heavily since 2014. I ran the effort to dismantle the longstanding TIF district that was basically a city slush fund under previous administrations that went back all the way in the early 80s. And I've been involved in various other committees. I'm on the Renaissance Zone Authority for the City of Bismarck. I'm on the Special Assessment Task Force, which is looking to figure out how to eliminate special assessments for street maintenance. And I was just last week appointed to the County Home Rule Charter Draft Committee. So I keep myself very busy with local government and state government.
Yes. And can I ask you, just because I know this has been a topic that comes up so many sessions, but are you involved in anything now exploring the whole property tax issue again for the next session? I'm hearing rumblings that this could be the session that that people will finally be heard as far as either cutting property tax or eliminating them. And are you involved in anything like that? Are you?
Oh yeah, I'm usually involved in all of those discussions, and every session since 2009 has been the session that we were going to fix the problem. It doesn't happen. There's no quote in Robinson's History of North Dakota. Duplication in property taxes when it comes to higher ed and all these things, it's like the weather. Everybody complains about it, but nobody wants to do anything about it. And, these things go way back. Local governments have so much lobbying influence in the legislature. The League of Cities, Association of Counties, unless there is a plan that is very clear, that is not going to reduce their funding or reduce their authority, they're against it. And so we have to come up with a strategy at the local level within the political subs one by one. There is no cookie cutter solution to any of this. So in Bismarck, what we are doing on special assessments is trying to find a new way to do it. Instead of hitting everybody with an $8,000 bill that they have to pay over the next 7 years, we want to make it a monthly fee that you pay just like the water bill, and it would be on the water bill. And that's your contribution to fixing the streets. And
So I don't, before you move on, because I have a question about that. So with the special assessments, I mean, we've been hit a few times, like, oh, they tore up the road to fix one thing, and then a year less than a year, they're tearing up the road again because now they had to do something else. If they're just doing a monthly assessment or fee, then is it distributed evenly? And so it's not like, oh, your road was fixed, so you pay more than the guy down the street.
Right. There's probably going to be, and we've been working on this for 5 years. Now, 2 of those years were kind of wasted because we discovered that state law wouldn't actually allow us to do this. So the 2019 session, we tried to get that law changed. Legislature didn't want to do it. In 2021, we finally got them to change the law that would allow us at the local level to fix our own situation. And yes, the goal would be that everybody pays a fee. There will be some progressivity on the scheme where if you have a small house on a small lot, you're going to pay less than somebody who's got a big house on a big lot. Or if you're in a mobile home or in an apartment, obviously you shouldn't be paying the same amount as somebody who's got a pretty good spread. And so this is a first step. Like I've been selling this as, if we can figure this problem out, we can figure property taxes out. We've spent 5 years on it. Even if we have something to take to the people by the end of this year, and that's the target, I believe, it's going to take a couple of years to implement it. And so hopefully by fiscal year 2024, 2025, we will have this thing running. And yeah, everybody will pay in, and then those dollars will go out to keeping everybody's streets relatively at an equal level. There won't be work done every year. There should be a more consistent pothole filling program. But when it comes to ripping out the streets, it'll be on basically the same schedule that it has been with special assessments. But you're not going to get hit time and time again and have basically a lien against your property when it happens.
Can you tell us, I had many people say that they thought specials were a fund that was supposed to be maintained for street repairs and for that kind of thing, and that's why people had to pay specials to begin with. That is not the case, it seems. Where do the specials go? Do they just go into the general fund when people pay their special assessments? You know, like when you build a home and you're building all the streets, and so that new development, you really get hit. But then that money just goes in the general fund then?
No.
Anything that's left over?
No. And there's a dozen kinds of specials. There's greenfield specials where a brand new development on the outskirts of the town gets built. The city acts as a bank for the developer, sells bonds on the open market, maybe sells them to the legacy fund, and then takes that money and uses that money to put the roads, sewers, everything in on behalf of the developer, and then that debt gets put onto the lot owner as a debt. So in essence, the city is acting as a bank to subsidize development. That's one kind of special. We want to get rid of that completely, and that won't even require a vote of the people. The city commission could do that. In fact, it's going to be on the agenda next Tuesday.
So I want to encourage people, because we're running out of time, I want to let people know where they can go to your website.
Yep, for my campaign website, they can go to moveburleyforward.com. I have all the information. If you want to know anything about me, I've got all my work that I've done over the years on local and state issues. You can email me. There's obviously a donate button, and if you just Google my name, you'll find me and what I've done over the years.
And then for the Watchdog Network?
And for Watchdog, you can go to watchingnd.com, and it's got all the information. Sign up for the newsletter. All of our information goes out that way.
Because there's lots more to learn, and if you go to those sites, you'll be able to learn
we could go on for hours.
Yes, we could.
Well, thank you, Dustin, for joining us today.
Absolutely.